Beneath the sands of Egypt lies a discovery so shocking that it threatens to rewrite everything we thought we knew about human civilization. We're talking about massive underground chambers stretching over 2,000 feet deep, spiral staircases carved with impossible precision, and hidden portals deliberately buried beneath the most famous monuments on Earth. What you're about to see isn't science fiction. It's real radar evidence that mainstream archaeology is desperately trying to dismiss. Right now, at this very moment, there are enormous rooms the size of Olympic swimming pools sitting in complete darkness beneath the Giza pyramids. Tunnels that wind deeper into the earth than the Eiffel Tower is tall. And the most disturbing part, authorities don't want you to know about any of it. My name is Alex, and if you're fascinated by ancient mysteries that challenge everything we've been taught about our past, then you've found your home. Today we're diving deep into discoveries that are so controversial, so earth-shattering, that powerful figures in archaeology are working overtime to keep them buried. Literally, what I'm about to reveal comes from cutting-edge radar technology that can see through solid rock. Technology that has uncovered a vast subterranean world beneath Egypt's most iconic structures. But here's where it gets really interesting. Every time independent researchers try to investigate these findings further, they hit a wall of bureaucratic resistance. Permits denied. Access blocked. Questions deflected. Why would anyone want to hide evidence of advanced ancient engineering? What could be so dangerous about exploring underground chambers that have been sealed for thousands of years? And most importantly, who really built the pyramids? By the end of this series, you'll have access to radar images, scientific data, and testimonies that paint a picture so compelling it's impossible to ignore. We're talking about evidence that suggests the pyramids weren't just monuments, they were markers. Markers pointing to something far more significant hidden beneath the surface. But before we dive into the latest groundbreaking discoveries, let me set the stage with something that will blow your mind. The Great Pyramid of Giza weighs approximately 6 million tons. Think about that for a moment. 6 million tons of precisely cut stone blocks, some weighing up to 80 tons each, arranged with mathematical accuracy that modern engineers struggle to replicate. And according to mainstream history, this was accomplished by people using copper tools, wooden ramps, and rope. Does that sound realistic to you? Now imagine if I told you that this massive structure, along with its neighboring pyramids, might actually be sitting on top of an even more impressive feat of engineering. An underground complex so vast and sophisticated that it dwarfs anything we've discovered in Egypt's known history. That's exactly what recent radar scans are suggesting, and the implications are staggering. In March of this year, Professor Corrado Malanga and his research team were conducting routine ground-penetrating radar surveys around the Giza plateau. They expected to find maybe some buried artifacts, perhaps evidence of ancient workshops or storage areas. Instead, their equipment detected something that shouldn't exist according to our current understanding of ancient Egypt. Spiral structures. Multiple spiral formations descending deep underground near the Khafra pyramid. Not random geological features, but organized, deliberately constructed spirals that appeared to connect to larger chamber systems below. The team double-checked their equipment. They ran multiple scans from different angles. The results were consistent. There was something massive and artificial beneath their feet. But here's where the story takes a darker turn. Almost immediately after these initial findings were reported, prominent figures in Egyptology began dismissing them. Dr. Zahi Hawass, one of the most powerful archaeologists in Egypt, publicly stated that these spiral structures were probably just natural rock formations, radar anomalies, misinterpretations of geological data. This reaction should concern you, and here's why. Throughout history, groundbreaking archaeological discoveries have often faced immediate skepticism from established institutions. The Dead Sea Scrolls were initially dismissed as forgeries. Tutankhamun's tomb was considered a minor find before its full significance was understood. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey was ignored for decades because it didn't fit the accepted timeline of human civilization. The pattern is always the same. Evidence emerges that challenges the established narrative. Authorities dismiss it without proper investigation. Years later, the evidence proves to be authentic and revolutionary. Are we witnessing this pattern repeat itself beneath the pyramids of Giza? The March discoveries were just the beginning. What happened next would make those initial spiral structures seem almost mundane by comparison. In June, Malanga's team returned to Giza with more advanced equipment and a larger research crew. Their new scans penetrated deeper into the bedrock, revealing details that would send shockwaves through the archaeological community. Picture this. You're looking at a radar screen that's showing you cross-sections of the Earth beneath one of the most famous monuments in human history. Suddenly, the screen lights up with geometric patterns that extend deeper than anyone thought possible. Chambers, corridors, staircases, all connected in a network that resembles an underground city more than random cave systems. The depth readings were the most shocking aspect. These structures weren't shallow burial chambers or natural caverns near the surface. They extended over 2,000 feet into the Earth. To put that in perspective, that's deeper than most modern skyscrapers are tall. Imagine the Empire State Building turned upside down and buried beneath the pyramids. That's the scale we're talking about. But depth wasn't the only remarkable feature revealed by the June scans. The precision of these underground structures was extraordinary. Perfectly symmetrical chambers measuring roughly 80 meters across. Interconnected tunnels following geometric patterns. Spiral staircases descending in calculated intervals. This wasn't random. This wasn't natural. This was architecture on a scale that defies our understanding of ancient capabilities. The team documented everything meticulously. Multiple radar passes confirmed the same structures from different angles. Cross-referencing with electrical resistivity imaging provided additional verification. This was solid, repeatable scientific data showing artificial structures of immense complexity beneath the Khafra pyramid. Yet once again, the response from mainstream archaeology was immediate dismissal. Dr. Hawass and other established figures in Egyptology rushed to downplay these findings. They suggested the radar data was being misinterpreted. They argued that what appeared to be chambers and tunnels were actually natural geological features that just happened to look artificial on the scans. But here's the problem with that explanation. Natural geological processes don't create perfectly symmetrical chambers. They don't carve spiral staircases with mathematical precision. They don't arrange tunnel networks in organized geometric patterns. The radar evidence was showing something that required planning, engineering, and construction techniques that shouldn't have existed thousands of years ago according to our current historical timeline. This raises uncomfortable questions that establishment archaeology seems reluctant to address. If these structures are artificial, who built them? When were they constructed? And why have they remained hidden for so long? The implications become even more disturbing when you consider the official story of pyramid construction. We're told that the pyramids were built around 4,500 years ago by ancient Egyptians using primitive tools and simple techniques. Yet the precision of these monuments suggests capabilities far beyond what those tools could achieve. Now we have evidence of even more sophisticated construction hidden beneath the surface. Underground chambers that required advanced engineering to excavate and support. Tunnel systems that would challenge modern construction crews. Spiral staircases carved into solid bedrock with precision that rivals contemporary architecture. Either our understanding of ancient Egyptian capabilities is completely wrong, or something else entirely is responsible for these structures. The evidence doesn't stop with Malanga's team. While Italian researchers were uncovering the massive chamber systems beneath Khafra, a completely separate group of scientists was making their own disturbing discoveries nearby. Japanese researchers from Higashi Nippon International University and Tohoku University were conducting their own radar surveys in the Western Cemetery area of the Giza Plateau. Using different equipment and methodology, they detected anomalies that added another layer of mystery to the growing puzzle. Just 2 meters below the surface, their scans revealed a distinct L-shaped structure measuring approximately 10 meters by 10 meters. What made this discovery particularly intriguing was evidence that the structure had been deliberately concealed. Someone in ancient times had carefully buried this formation beneath layers of sand. Why would anyone deliberately hide a structure unless it was protecting something important? But the shallow L-shaped structure was just the beginning. Deeper scans revealed something even more significant beneath it. At a depth of 5 to 10 meters, the Japanese team detected what appeared to be an open cavity or chamber, roughly the same size as the structure above it. Unlike the solid stone and packed earth surrounding it, this deeper anomaly showed characteristics suggesting an air-filled space or loosely packed materials. In other words, there was likely an actual room or chamber hidden beneath the sand. The positioning and characteristics of these structures strongly suggested they were artificial constructions, not natural features. The deliberate burial, the precise measurements, the organized layout all pointed to human engineering from an ancient time period. What's particularly fascinating is how these Japanese discoveries align with local legends and historical accounts that have circulated around Giza for centuries. Stories of hidden chambers, secret passages, and underground repositories of ancient knowledge have long been dismissed as folklore. Suddenly, these tales were gaining credible scientific support. The legendary Hall of Records, supposedly containing the true history of ancient Egypt and evidence of advanced prehistoric civilizations, has been a subject of speculation for decades. Could these newly discovered chambers be connected to such repositories of forbidden knowledge? The thought is both thrilling and terrifying. Thrilling because it suggests we're on the verge of discoveries that could revolutionize our understanding of human history. Terrifying because it implies that powerful institutions have been actively suppressing evidence of our true past. Consider the economic and political implications. Egypt's tourism industry generates billions of dollars annually, largely based on established historical narratives about ancient Egyptian civilization. The pyramids are marketed as triumphs of pharaonic engineering, symbols of Egypt's ancient glory and sophistication. What happens to that narrative if evidence emerges that the pyramids were actually built by an unknown civilization that predated ancient Egypt? What happens if these underground chambers contain records that contradict everything we've been taught about human development? The financial incentives to suppress such discoveries are enormous. The political ramifications could destabilize entire academic fields and national identities built around specific historical interpretations. This might explain the suspicious pattern of resistance that independent researchers face when trying to investigate these anomalies further. Permits for detailed exploration beneath the pyramids are rarely granted to teams whose findings might challenge established narratives. Requests for deeper investigation are routinely denied without adequate explanation. It's as if someone doesn't want these mysteries solved, but the evidence is becoming too compelling to ignore indefinitely. Multiple independent research teams using different technologies are detecting the same anomalies. The radar data is clear and reproducible. The implications are becoming impossible to dismiss through bureaucratic stonewalling. We're approaching a tipping point where the truth about what lies beneath Giza might finally emerge, regardless of institutional resistance. The silence beneath the pyramids is about to be broken forever. What you're looking at right now are the first images ever captured of chambers so vast they could house entire city blocks. Rooms that have been sealed in absolute darkness for over 4,000 years. And the people who control access to these discoveries are doing everything in their power to keep you from seeing what's really down there. But we're going to show you anyway, Because what lies beneath Giza isn't just a collection of hidden rooms. It's evidence of engineering capabilities that shouldn't have existed in the ancient world. We're talking about construction projects that would challenge modern technology, built by civilizations that mainstream history claims never existed. The rabbit hole goes deeper than you can imagine, and every new piece of evidence makes the official story of the pyramids more impossible to believe. Let me paint you a picture of what researchers are actually finding down there. Imagine descending into chambers where the air hasn't moved in millennia. Your flashlight beam cuts through darkness so complete it seems to absorb light itself. The walls around you stretch upward beyond your vision, carved from solid bedrock with precision that makes modern construction look primitive. You're standing in spaces that dwarf cathedral naves, connected by tunnels that snake through the earth like the arteries of some massive underground organism. And as your footsteps echo in the emptiness, you realize you're walking through architecture that predates written history. This isn't speculation anymore. This is documented reality captured by ground-penetrating radar that can see through solid stone. The images are so clear, so detailed, that denying their existence would be like claiming the moon doesn't exist because you refuse to look up at night. Yet that's exactly what's happening. The resistance to these discoveries goes beyond normal scientific skepticism. It's systematic, it's coordinated, and it's getting more desperate as the evidence becomes impossible to ignore. Think about the timing. Just when technology advances enough to reveal what's hidden beneath these ancient monuments, suddenly permits become impossible to obtain. Research proposals disappear into bureaucratic black holes. International teams with impeccable credentials find themselves blocked at every turn. Why would anyone work so hard to prevent the exploration of empty underground chambers? Unless, of course, they're not empty. The Japanese discoveries near the Western Cemetery add another disturbing dimension to this puzzle. When their radar detected that perfectly square cavity buried beneath layers of sand, they weren't just finding another chamber. They were uncovering evidence of deliberate concealment. Someone went to enormous effort to hide this structure. They carefully arranged sand and debris to mask its presence from casual observation. But why? What could be so important that ancient builders felt compelled to bury it completely? The answer might lie in the nature of the chamber itself. Unlike the massive rooms beneath Khafra, this structure shows characteristics of a sealed environment. The radar signatures suggest it might still contain its original atmosphere, unchanged since the day it was closed off from the surface world. Imagine what could be preserved in such conditions. Organic materials that would have decayed anywhere else. Written records on materials too fragile to survive in normal environments. Artifacts that could rewrite our understanding of ancient capabilities. Or perhaps something even more significant. Ancient Egyptian texts speak repeatedly of sacred knowledge hidden beneath their monuments. The Book of the Dead mentions chambers where the wisdom of the gods was preserved for future generations. The Turin Papyrus describes underground repositories containing the true history of Egypt's origins. For centuries, scholars have dismissed these references as religious symbolism or mythological metaphor. But what if they were literal descriptions of real places? The radar evidence suggests they were. Consider the implications of that possibility. If these chambers contain records of ancient Egyptian history that contradict the official timeline, it would explain the resistance to their exploration. If artifacts inside demonstrate technological capabilities beyond what we attribute to ancient civilizations, it would threaten fundamental assumptions about human development. And if evidence exists of contact with advanced civilizations that predated known history, it would shatter our understanding of humanity's place in the cosmos. The stakes couldn't be higher, but here's what makes this situation even more intriguing. The discoveries aren't limited to Giza. Similar anomalies are being detected at archaeological sites worldwide. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey revealed construction capabilities that shouldn't have existed 12,000 years ago. Pumapunku in Bolivia shows evidence of precision stone cutting that challenges our understanding of ancient South American cultures. Underwater structures off the coasts of Japan and India suggest civilizations that thrived when those areas were above sea level, during ice ages that ended over 10,000 years ago. A pattern is emerging. Evidence of advanced ancient capabilities is surfacing globally, and in every case, mainstream archaeology initially dismisses the findings as impossible or irrelevant, but the evidence keeps accumulating, the technology keeps improving, and the anomalies keep multiplying. We're approaching a moment when the sheer volume of contradictory evidence will force a complete re-evaluation of human history. The underground chambers beneath Giza might be the catalyst that triggers that paradigm shift. The Italian team's June discoveries revealed something that should be impossible according to current archaeological timelines. Spiral staircases carved into solid bedrock with mathematical precision that rivals modern engineering. Chamber systems organized according to geometric principles that suggest advanced planning and surveying capabilities. Most disturbing of all, construction techniques that show no evidence of the tool marks you'd expect from copper implements and stone hammers. The walls of these chambers show characteristics consistent with advanced cutting methods. Smooth surfaces that suggest the use of tools or techniques capable of slicing through granite like butter. Edge details that indicate precision measurement and planning capabilities far beyond what we attribute to ancient Egyptian civilization. This isn't gradual technological development. This isn't the slow accumulation of building skills over generations. This is evidence of capabilities that appeared fully formed and then vanished from the historical record. The only way to explain such evidence is to acknowledge that either our timeline of human technological development is completely wrong, or that civilizations with advanced capabilities existed much earlier than we've been willing to admit. Both possibilities terrify establishment archaeology. If human technology advanced much earlier than currently accepted, it means our entire framework for understanding cultural evolution needs revision. Textbooks would need rewriting. Academic careers built on specific historical interpretations would crumble. Funding structures based on established chronologies would collapse. If advanced prehistoric civilizations actually existed, the implications are even more revolutionary. It would mean that human history includes chapters we've completely lost. It would suggest that knowledge and capabilities we consider modern innovations were actually rediscovered technologies from forgotten eras, and it would raise the terrifying possibility that we're not the first advanced civilization to develop on this planet. The evidence beneath Giza is forcing us to confront these uncomfortable possibilities. Every new radar scan reveals details that shouldn't exist. Every attempt to explain away the anomalies as natural formations becomes more desperate and less convincing. The truth is emerging whether establishment archaeology wants to acknowledge it or not. But understanding the full significance of these discoveries requires looking beyond just the physical evidence. We need to examine the broader context of why such evidence would be suppressed in the first place. The answer lies in the intersection of economics, politics, and human psychology. The current historical narrative serves multiple powerful interests, and disrupting it would have consequences that extend far beyond academic archaeology. Egypt's national identity is built around being the cradle of civilization. Tourism revenues depend on maintaining the image of ancient Egyptian achievement and glory. International cultural institutions have invested enormous resources in supporting specific interpretations of human development. Admitting that the pyramids might not be Egyptian achievements, or that they represent technological capabilities beyond what we attribute to ancient civilizations, would undermine all of these established interests. The financial implications alone are staggering. Egypt's tourism industry generates over $12 billion annually, much of it based on visitors coming to see the achievements of ancient Egyptian civilization. If evidence emerged that the pyramids were actually built by unknown predecessors, it could devastate that economic foundation. But the psychological implications might be even more significant. Human beings have a deep need to understand their place in history. We construct narratives about our past that give meaning to our present circumstances. Discovering that advanced civilizations existed and then disappeared completely would force us to confront uncomfortable questions about the fragility of human achievement. It would remind us that technological progress isn't inevitable, that civilizations can rise and fall completely, leaving only mysterious traces for future generations to puzzle over. These are the kinds of revelations that establishment institutions are designed to resist. Not necessarily through conscious conspiracy, but through the natural tendency of human organizations to protect their existing structures and beliefs. The evidence beneath Giza threatens those structures in ways that go far beyond simple historical revision. That's why the recent discovery of what appears to be a deliberate cover-up operation becomes so disturbing. When you start connecting the dots between institutional resistance and the mounting physical evidence, a pattern emerges that should alarm anyone who cares about uncovering historical truth. The cover-up isn't just passive resistance anymore, it's active suppression. Consider what happened when the Italian research team tried to publish their detailed findings in peer-reviewed journals. Multiple publications initially accepted their papers for review, then mysteriously withdrew acceptance after what the researchers describe as external pressure. Academic conferences that had invited presentations on the Giza discoveries suddenly rescinded speaking invitations without explanation. This isn't normal scientific skepticism. This is systematic censorship. Dr. Hawass himself has made statements that reveal the depth of institutional concern about these discoveries. When pressed about why further investigation isn't being permitted, he's gone beyond claiming the evidence is questionable. He's actively argued that some knowledge should remain buried. Think about the implications of that position. An archaeologist arguing against archaeological investigation. A scientist claiming that certain discoveries should be suppressed rather than studied. This isn't academic caution. This is ideological control. But the most disturbing aspect isn't what's being hidden, it's how efficiently the hiding is being accomplished. International research permits that should take weeks to process are delayed for months or years. Equipment shipments to Egypt mysteriously get held up in customs indefinitely. Research funding for projects investigating these anomalies gets redirected to safer, more conventional studies. The message is clear. Investigate the conventional narrative about Egyptian history, and you'll receive support and recognition. Challenge that narrative with inconvenient evidence, and you'll find yourself professionally isolated and financially cut off. This systematic suppression becomes even more sinister when you realize it's not just happening in Egypt. Similar patterns of resistance are emerging at archaeological sites worldwide, wherever evidence suggests advanced ancient capabilities. In Turkey, researchers investigating the true age and sophistication of Göbekli Tepe face increasing restrictions on what they can study and publish. In Bolivia, attempts to analyze the precision stone cutting at Pumapunku using advanced measurement techniques are consistently blocked by government authorities. The resistance is global, coordinated, and getting more aggressive as the evidence becomes harder to dismiss. But why would anyone invest so much effort in suppressing archaeological discoveries? What could be so threatening about ancient underground chambers that it justifies international coordination to keep them hidden? The answer might lie not in what these chambers contain, but in what their very existence proves about human history. If the underground complex beneath Giza was built by the same civilization that constructed the pyramids, it demonstrates technological capabilities that fundamentally contradict our understanding of ancient Egyptian society. We're talking about engineering projects that would strain modern resources, accomplished by people who supposedly used copper tools and wooden levers. The mathematical precision required to excavate chambers 80 meters across at depths of over 2,000 feet exceeds anything attributed to ancient civilizations. The structural engineering needed to prevent collapse, while carving spiral staircases through solid bedrock, suggests knowledge of geology, physics, and construction techniques that shouldn't have existed 4,000 years ago. But if these structures predate ancient Egyptian civilization entirely, the implications become even more revolutionary. It would mean that advanced human societies existed much earlier than our current timeline allows. It would suggest that technological development doesn't follow the linear progression we assume, where primitive societies gradually develop more sophisticated capabilities over time. Instead, it would indicate that human civilization has experienced cycles of advancement and collapse, with knowledge being lost and rediscovered across vast spans of time. This cyclical view of human development appears in ancient texts from cultures worldwide. Hindu scriptures describe cycles of civilization spanning hundreds of thousands of years. Mesopotamian records speak of knowledge being preserved through great catastrophes that destroyed previous world orders. Even Plato's account of Atlantis describes an advanced civilization that disappeared completely, leaving only legends. For centuries, scholars have dismissed these accounts as mythology or allegory, but the evidence beneath Giza suggests they might be historical records of actual events. If that's true, it means we're not the first technologically advanced civilization to develop on Earth. We might not even be the second or third. Human history could include multiple cycles of advancement, catastrophe, and redevelopment, stretching back far longer than we've ever imagined. The psychological impact of such a revelation would be staggering. It would force humanity to confront the possibility that our current technological civilization, despite all its achievements, is neither unique nor permanent. It would remind us that advanced societies can disappear so completely that later generations remember them only as myths and legends. These are the kinds of truths that establishment institutions are designed to protect us from, not because they're false, but because they're too disturbing for most people to accept. The underground chambers beneath Giza represent physical evidence that could force these uncomfortable revelations into mainstream consciousness. That's why their exploration is being prevented with such desperate determination. But the evidence is becoming too overwhelming to suppress indefinitely. The radar images show details that can't be explained away as natural formations or measurement errors. The geometric precision of the chamber layouts defies conventional explanations about ancient building capabilities. The sheer scale of the construction project dwarfs anything we associate with early Egyptian civilization. Multiple independent research teams using different technologies are detecting the same anomalies. Japanese scientists working separately from Italian researchers are finding complementary evidence that supports the same conclusions. The convergence of evidence from multiple sources makes denial increasingly difficult to maintain. Most importantly, the technology for detecting these anomalies is becoming more widely available and harder to control. Ground-penetrating radar equipment that once required institutional approval and massive funding is now accessible to independent researchers and amateur investigators. Satellite imaging capabilities that governments once monopolized are available through commercial services. Data analysis techniques that required supercomputers can now be performed on personal laptops. The democratization of investigation technology means that evidence suppression becomes exponentially more difficult to maintain over time. We're approaching a tipping point where the truth about what lies beneath Giza will emerge regardless of institutional resistance. But understanding the full significance of these discoveries requires examining them in the context of other anomalous evidence that's been accumulating worldwide. The underground chambers beneath the pyramids aren't isolated phenomena. They're part of a pattern of ancient achievements that consistently exceed our assumptions about historical capabilities. Consider the precision of ancient astronomical observations. The Antikythera mechanism, discovered in a Mediterranean shipwreck, contains gear ratios sophisticated enough to predict eclipses and planetary movements with accuracy that wasn't matched again until the development of modern clockwork. The Nazca lines in Peru demonstrate surveying capabilities that require aerial perspective to achieve. Yet they were created by civilizations that supposedly had no flight technology. The megalithic structures at Sacsayhuaman in Peru show stone-cutting precision that modern equipment struggles to replicate, with blocks fitted so perfectly that knife blades can't be inserted between them. Underwater ruins off the coasts of Japan, India, and the Mediterranean suggest civilizations that thrived when sea levels were hundreds of feet lower than today, during ice ages that ended over 10,000 years ago. Each of these discoveries challenges specific aspects of our historical timeline. Together, they paint a picture of human development that's far more complex and mysterious than mainstream archaeology acknowledges. The underground complex beneath Giza might be the key that unlocks this larger puzzle. If these chambers contain records or artifacts that definitively prove advanced ancient capabilities, it would validate all the other anomalous evidence that's been dismissed or ignored. It would force a complete re-evaluation of human history based on physical evidence rather than theoretical assumptions. But accessing that evidence requires overcoming the institutional barriers that have been erected to prevent investigation. The Italian research team has proposed using non-invasive techniques to explore the chambers without damaging any potential contents. Ground-penetrating radar can map internal structures without disturbing them. Electromagnetic imaging can detect different materials and densities without physical intrusion. These methods would allow detailed investigation while preserving whatever might be hidden inside the chambers for proper archaeological study later. Yet even these minimal intrusion proposals are being rejected by Egyptian authorities. The resistance goes beyond protecting archaeological sites from damage. It's preventing any investigation whatsoever, even using techniques that pose no threat to potential contents. This level of obstruction suggests that authorities either already know what's inside these chambers, or they're terrified of what might be discovered. Neither possibility reflects well on the integrity of establishment archaeology. If they know what's hidden and are deliberately concealing it, they're betraying the fundamental principles of scientific inquiry. If they don't know, but are preventing investigation out of fear, they're allowing ideology to override evidence-based research. Either way, the public is being denied access to potentially revolutionary discoveries about human history, but the tide is turning. International pressure is building for transparent investigation of the Giza anomalies. Scientific organizations worldwide are questioning why such significant discoveries aren't being properly studied. Media attention is focusing on the inconsistencies between the radar evidence and official explanations. Most importantly, independent researchers are finding ways to circumvent institutional gatekeepers and gather evidence using alternative methods. The truth about what lies beneath the pyramids is emerging piece by piece, despite systematic efforts to suppress it. What we're witnessing might be the beginning of a complete paradigm shift in our understanding of human civilization. The underground chambers beneath Giza could be the catalyst that forces mainstream archaeology to abandon its outdated assumptions and embrace a more complex, more mysterious view of our past. The implications extend far beyond academic history. If evidence emerges that advanced civilizations existed and disappeared in prehistoric times, it would fundamentally change how we view our current technological society. It would remind us that progress isn't inevitable, that knowledge can be lost, and that civilizations can vanish so completely that later generations remember them only as myths. These are sobering lessons for a species that assumes its current achievements represent the pinnacle of human development. The chambers beneath Giza might contain the evidence that forces us to confront these uncomfortable truths about the fragility of human civilization. But they might also contain something even more valuable: proof that human capabilities extend far beyond what we currently imagine possible. If ancient builders could create underground complexes that challenge modern engineering, what other achievements might be hidden in humanity's forgotten past? What knowledge might be preserved in chambers that have remained sealed for millennia? What secrets about human potential might be waiting in the darkness beneath the world's most famous monuments? The answers to these questions are literally within our reach. The technology exists to explore these chambers safely and thoroughly. The evidence already gathered proves their existence beyond reasonable doubt. The only barrier preventing these discoveries from revolutionizing our understanding of human history is institutional resistance based on protecting established narratives rather than seeking truth. But that resistance is crumbling as evidence accumulates and public awareness grows. The silence beneath the pyramids is about to be broken forever, and what emerges from those ancient chambers might change everything we thought we knew about who we are and where we came from. The underground city beneath Giza is real. The evidence is overwhelming, and the time for denial is rapidly coming to an end. What happens next will depend on whether humanity is ready to face the truth about its forgotten past, no matter how disturbing or revolutionary that truth might be. The chambers are waiting, the secrets are preserved, and the technology to unlock them exists right now. All that remains is finding the courage to look into the darkness and discover what our ancestors wanted us to remember. Because sometimes the most important discoveries aren't found by digging up the past. They're found by having the courage to challenge the stories we've been told about that past. And the stories we've been told about the pyramids are about to change forever. The evidence beneath Giza proves that human history is far stranger, far older, and far more sophisticated than we've ever dared to imagine. The question isn't whether these discoveries will revolutionize our understanding of civilization. The question is whether we're brave enough to accept what they reveal about the true scope of human achievement and the cyclical nature of knowledge, and forgetting that seems to define our species' relationship with its own past. The underground chambers beneath the pyramids are calling to us across thousands of years of silence. Are we finally ready to listen? The answers are already down there, waiting in chambers so vast they could swallow entire city blocks whole. And what's inside them is about to shatter everything you thought you knew about human civilization. Right now, as you're watching this, there are rooms beneath the pyramids filled with air that hasn't moved in 4,000 years. Corridors carved with precision that makes NASA's engineering look primitive, and artifacts that could prove we're not the first advanced civilization to walk this planet. But here's the thing that should terrify you. The people who control access to these discoveries are fighting tooth and nail to keep you from ever seeing what's really down there. Because what lies beneath Giza isn't just a collection of empty chambers. It's physical proof that everything we've been taught about human history is a carefully constructed lie. The cover-up isn't subtle anymore. It's desperate, and it's getting more aggressive every day as the evidence becomes impossible to deny. When Italian researchers publish radar images showing spiral staircases descending over 2,000 feet into solid bedrock, establishment archaeology didn't just dismiss the findings. They launched a coordinated campaign to discredit the entire research team. Academic journals that had already accepted their papers suddenly withdrew acceptance after what the scientists describe as external pressure. Conference speaking invitations were mysteriously rescinded without explanation. This isn't normal scientific skepticism. This is systematic censorship of discoveries that threaten the very foundation of how we understand human development. Dr. Zahi Hawass, the man who controls access to Egypt's archaeological sites, has gone beyond claiming the evidence is questionable. He's actively argued that some knowledge should remain buried. Think about that for a moment. An archaeologist arguing against archaeological investigation. A scientist claiming that certain discoveries should be suppressed rather than studied. When the most powerful figure in Egyptian archaeology starts advocating for deliberate ignorance, you know something massive is being hidden. But the evidence is becoming too overwhelming to suppress through bureaucratic stonewalling. Multiple independent research teams using completely different technologies are detecting the same impossible structures. Japanese scientists working separately from Italian researchers are finding complementary evidence that supports identical conclusions about vast artificial chambers carved into the bedrock beneath the most famous monuments on Earth. the convergence of evidence from multiple sources makes denial increasingly difficult to maintain. The radar signatures are too clear, too detailed, too consistent across different measurement techniques to dismiss as equipment errors or natural formations. We're looking at construction projects that would challenge modern engineering capabilities, supposedly accomplished by people who used copper tools and wooden levers. Mathematical precision in excavation that exceeds anything attributed to ancient civilizations. Structural engineering that demonstrates knowledge of geology, physics, and construction techniques that shouldn't have existed 4,000 years ago. The implications are staggering. Either our entire understanding of ancient Egyptian capabilities is completely wrong, or these structures were built by someone else entirely. Someone with technological knowledge that mainstream history claims never existed. The Japanese discoveries add another disturbing dimension to this puzzle. When their ground-penetrating radar detected that perfectly square chamber, deliberately buried beneath layers of sand near the Western Cemetery, they weren't just finding another underground room. They were uncovering evidence of systematic concealment. Someone went to enormous effort to hide this structure from discovery. They carefully arranged sand and debris to mask its presence from casual observation. But the radar signatures suggest the chamber might still contain its original atmosphere, unchanged since the day it was sealed off from the surface world. Imagine what could be preserved in such conditions. Organic materials that would have decayed anywhere else, written records on materials too fragile to survive in normal environments, artifacts that could definitively prove technological capabilities beyond what we attribute to any known ancient civilization. Or perhaps something even more revolutionary. Ancient Egyptian texts speak repeatedly of sacred knowledge hidden beneath their monuments. The Book of the Dead mentions chambers where the wisdom of the gods was preserved for future generations. The Turin Papyrus describes underground repositories containing the true history of Egypt's origins before the pharaohs. For centuries, scholars have dismissed these references as religious symbolism or mythological metaphor. But what if they were literal descriptions of actual places? What if the radar evidence is showing us the physical locations where forbidden knowledge has been waiting in darkness for millennia? The resistance to investigating these chambers goes far beyond normal archaeological caution. International research permits that should take weeks to process are delayed for months or years. Equipment shipments to Egypt mysteriously get held up in customs indefinitely. Research funding for projects investigating these anomalies gets redirected to safer, more conventional studies. The message couldn't be clearer. Investigate the approved narrative about Egyptian history, and you'll receive support and recognition. Challenge that narrative with inconvenient evidence, and you'll find yourself professionally isolated and financially cut off from the resources needed to continue your research. This systematic suppression becomes even more sinister when you realize it's not just happening in Egypt. Similar patterns of resistance are emerging at archaeological sites worldwide, wherever evidence suggests advanced ancient capabilities that contradict established timelines. In Turkey, researchers investigating the true age and sophistication of Göbekli Tepe face increasing restrictions on what they can study and publish. In Bolivia, attempts to analyze the precision stone cutting at Pumapunku using advanced measurement techniques are consistently blocked by government authorities. In Peru, access to the most intriguing aspects of sites like Sacsayhuaman is systematically limited to prevent detailed investigation. The resistance is global, coordinated, and getting more aggressive as evidence accumulates that challenges fundamental assumptions about human development. But here's what makes the Giza discoveries so potentially explosive. Unlike other anomalous sites that show evidence of advanced capabilities, the underground chambers beneath the pyramids appear to be completely sealed and potentially intact. Whatever was placed inside them when they were constructed might still be there, preserved in conditions that could maintain organic materials and delicate artifacts for thousands of years. We're not just talking about impressive engineering anymore. We're talking about the possibility of accessing a time capsule from a civilization that mainstream history claims never existed. The economic implications of such discoveries are staggering. Egypt's tourism industry generates over $12 billion annually, largely based on the established narrative about ancient Egyptian achievements. The pyramids are marketed as triumphs of pharaonic engineering, symbols of Egypt's ancient glory and cultural sophistication. What happens to that narrative if evidence emerges proving the pyramids were actually built by an unknown predecessor civilization? What happens if these underground chambers contain records that contradict everything tourists are told about Egyptian history? The financial incentives to suppress such discoveries are enormous, but the psychological implications might be even more significant for human civilization as a whole. If advanced prehistoric societies actually existed and then disappeared completely, it would force humanity to confront uncomfortable truths about the fragility of technological progress. It would remind us that civilizations can rise and fall so thoroughly that later generations remember them only as myths and legends. This cyclical view of human development appears in ancient texts from cultures worldwide. Hindu scriptures describe vast cycles of civilization spanning hundreds of thousands of years. Mesopotamian records speak of knowledge being preserved through great catastrophes that destroyed previous world orders. Even Plato's account of Atlantis describes an advanced civilization that vanished completely, leaving only fragmentary memories. For centuries, scholars have dismissed these accounts as mythology or allegory, but the evidence beneath Giza suggests they might be historical records of actual events that shaped human development in ways we're only beginning to understand. The Italian research team's detailed analysis of the chamber systems reveals construction techniques that show no evidence of the tool marks you'd expect from copper implements and stone hammers. The walls display characteristics consistent with advanced cutting methods that could slice through granite with precision that rivals modern industrial equipment. This isn't gradual technological development accumulated over generations. This is evidence of capabilities that appeared fully formed and then vanished from the historical record so completely that later civilizations had to redevelop basic engineering from scratch. The only way to explain such evidence is to acknowledge that either our timeline of human technological development is fundamentally flawed, or that civilizations with advanced capabilities existed much earlier than we've been willing to admit. Both possibilities represent existential threats to establishment archaeology and the academic careers built on specific historical interpretations. If human technology advanced much earlier than currently accepted, it means entire fields of study need complete revision. Textbooks would require rewriting. Funding structures based on established chronologies would collapse. Academic institutions would face pressure to acknowledge that their most fundamental assumptions about human development have been wrong for decades. If advanced prehistoric civilizations actually existed, the implications become even more revolutionary. It would mean that human history includes lost chapters containing knowledge and achievements that could transform our understanding of what's possible for our species. It would suggest that capabilities we consider cutting-edge modern innovations were actually rediscovered technologies from forgotten eras, and it would raise the terrifying possibility that we're not the first advanced civilization to develop on this planet, which means we might not be the last to disappear if we fail to learn from whatever caused our predecessors to vanish. The chambers beneath Giza could contain the evidence that forces mainstream academia to confront these uncomfortable possibilities. The radar data shows geometric precision in chamber layout that suggests advanced planning and surveying capabilities. Spiral staircases carved into solid bedrock with mathematical accuracy that rivals contemporary architecture. Tunnel systems organized according to principles that demonstrate sophisticated understanding of structural engineering. Most disturbing of all, construction on a scale that would strain modern resources, supposedly accomplished by a civilization that mainstream history portrays as technologically primitive. But accessing the evidence needed to resolve these questions requires overcoming institutional barriers that seem designed to prevent investigation rather than facilitate it. The Italian team has proposed using completely non-invasive techniques to explore the chambers without disturbing any potential contents. Ground-penetrating radar can map internal structures in detail without physical intrusion. Electromagnetic imaging can detect different materials and densities without damaging anything inside. Advanced acoustic analysis can determine chamber contents and structural details through sound wave reflection. These methods would allow comprehensive investigation while preserving whatever might be hidden inside the chambers for proper archaeological study using traditional techniques once access is eventually permitted. Yet even these minimal intrusion proposals are being systematically rejected by Egyptian authorities without adequate scientific justification. The level of resistance goes far beyond protecting archaeological sites from potential damage. It's preventing any investigation whatsoever, even using techniques that pose absolutely no threat to potential contents or structural integrity. This systematic obstruction suggests that authorities either already know what's inside these chambers and are deliberately concealing it, or they're so terrified of what might be discovered that they're willing to abandon scientific principles to prevent investigation. Neither possibility reflects well on the integrity of institutions that claim to be dedicated to uncovering historical truth. But the democratization of investigation technology is making evidence suppression increasingly difficult to maintain. Ground-penetrating radar equipment that once required massive institutional approval and funding is becoming accessible to independent researchers and amateur investigators with sufficient resources and determination. Satellite imaging capabilities that governments once monopolized are available through commercial services that can detect surface anomalies indicating subsurface structures. Data analysis techniques that required supercomputers can now be performed on personal laptops using software available to anyone with internet access. The technology needed to gather evidence about these underground chambers is spreading beyond the control of establishment institutions that have traditionally gatekept archaeological investigation. We're approaching a tipping point where the truth about what lies beneath Giza will emerge regardless of official resistance, because the tools needed to detect and analyze these structures are becoming too widespread to suppress effectively. Independent researchers around the world are beginning to coordinate their efforts using communication technologies that make institutional censorship nearly impossible to maintain. Evidence gathered by one team can be instantly shared with colleagues on different continents who can verify results using their own equipment and methodologies. The convergence of evidence from multiple independent sources makes systematic suppression exponentially more difficult as the number of investigators increases. But understanding the full significance of these discoveries requires examining them in the context of other anomalous evidence that's been accumulating at archaeological sites worldwide. The underground chambers beneath the pyramids aren't isolated phenomena. They're part of a global pattern of ancient achievements that consistently exceed our assumptions about historical technological capabilities. Consider the precision of astronomical observations encoded in ancient monuments. The Antikythera mechanism contains gear ratios sophisticated enough to predict eclipses and planetary movements with accuracy that wasn't matched again until the development of precision clockwork over 1,000 years later. The Nazca lines in Peru demonstrate surveying capabilities that require aerial perspective to achieve the geometric accuracy observed in their construction, yet they were created by civilizations that supposedly possessed no flight technology. The megalithic structures at Sacsayhuaman show stone-cutting precision that modern equipment struggles to replicate, with multi-ton blocks fitted so perfectly that knife blades can't be inserted between them despite the absence of any binding materials. Underwater ruins off the coasts of Japan, India, and the Mediterranean suggest civilizations that thrived when sea levels were hundreds of feet lower than today, during ice ages that ended over 10,000 years ago, according to geological evidence. Each of these discoveries challenges specific aspects of our accepted historical timeline. Together, they paint a picture of human development that's far more complex and mysterious than mainstream archaeology acknowledges. The underground complex beneath Giza might be the key that unlocks this larger puzzle about humanity's forgotten capabilities. If these chambers contain records or artifacts that definitively prove advanced ancient engineering, it would validate all the other anomalous evidence that's been dismissed or ignored by establishment institutions. It would force a complete re-evaluation of human history based on physical evidence rather than theoretical assumptions about technological development. The resistance to such discoveries reveals the extent to which academic institutions have become invested in protecting established narratives, rather than pursuing truth wherever evidence leads. But the evidence is becoming too overwhelming to dismiss through institutional authority alone. The radar images are too clear, the geometric precision too obvious, the engineering requirements too sophisticated to explain away as natural formations or primitive construction techniques. Multiple independent research teams using different technologies are converging on identical conclusions about artificial structures of impossible complexity hidden beneath the world's most famous archaeological site. The truth is emerging piece by piece, despite systematic efforts to suppress investigation. What we're witnessing might be the beginning of the most significant paradigm shift in our understanding of human civilization since the development of modern archaeology itself. The chambers beneath Giza could be the catalyst that forces mainstream academia to abandon outdated assumptions and embrace a more complex, more mysterious view of humanity's past achievements and capabilities. The implications extend far beyond academic history. If evidence emerges that advanced civilizations existed and then disappeared in prehistoric times, it would fundamentally change how we view our current technological society and its assumptions about progress being inevitable. It would remind us that knowledge can be lost completely, that civilizations can vanish so thoroughly that later generations remember them only as mythology, and that human achievement follows cycles of advancement and collapse rather than linear progression. These are sobering lessons for a species that assumes its current technological capabilities represent the pinnacle of human development, rather than just another point in an ongoing cycle. The chambers beneath Giza might contain evidence that forces us to confront these uncomfortable truths about the cyclical nature of civilization and the fragility of technological knowledge. But they might also contain something even more valuable than historical correction. They might hold proof that human capabilities extend far beyond what we currently imagine possible, preserved in conditions that could revolutionize our understanding of what our species has achieved in the past and what it might accomplish in the future. If ancient builders could create underground complexes that challenge modern engineering, what other achievements might be hidden in humanity's forgotten chapters? What knowledge might be preserved in chambers that have remained sealed since before recorded history began? What secrets about human potential might be waiting in the darkness beneath monuments that have watched civilizations rise and fall for thousands of years? The answers to these questions are literally within our reach. The technology exists to explore these chambers safely and thoroughly without damaging whatever they might contain. The evidence already gathered proves their existence beyond any reasonable scientific doubt. The only barrier preventing these discoveries from revolutionizing our understanding of human history is institutional resistance based on protecting established narratives rather than seeking truth through evidence-based investigation. But that resistance is crumbling as evidence accumulates and public awareness grows about the systematic suppression of discoveries that challenge accepted timelines. The silence that has protected these secrets for millennia is about to be broken forever, and what emerges from those ancient chambers will either confirm our assumptions about human development or shatter them completely. The underground city beneath Giza is real. The evidence is overwhelming. The technology to investigate it exists right now. All that remains is overcoming the institutional barriers that have been erected to prevent humanity from discovering the truth about its own forgotten past. Because sometimes the most important discoveries aren't made by digging deeper into the earth. They're made by having the courage to challenge the stories we've been told about what that earth contains. And the stories we've been told about the pyramids are about to change forever, whether establishment archaeology wants to acknowledge it or not. The chambers are waiting, the secrets are preserved, and the truth is emerging, despite every effort to keep it buried. The question isn't whether these discoveries will revolutionize our understanding of human civilization. The question is whether we're ready to accept what they reveal about the true scope of human achievement and the cyclical nature of knowledge that seems to define our species' relationship with its own history. The underground world beneath the pyramids is calling to us across thousands of years of carefully maintained silence. And after decades of suppression, we're finally developing the tools and determination needed to answer that call. What we find down there will either validate everything we've been taught about human development, or it will prove that our entire understanding of civilization has been built on incomplete evidence and flawed assumptions. Given the mounting evidence, which outcome seems more likely? The truth is waiting in the darkness beneath the most famous monuments on Earth. And that truth is about to emerge whether powerful institutions want it to or not. The truth that's been buried beneath Egypt's most famous monuments is so explosive that governments have spent decades ensuring you never hear about it. What you're about to witness will completely shatter everything you thought you knew about human history, because the evidence hidden beneath the pyramids proves that an advanced civilization existed thousands of years before anything mainstream archaeology is willing to admit. We're not talking about simple underground rooms anymore. We're talking about massive engineered complexes that extend deeper into the earth than the tallest skyscrapers reach into the sky. Chambers carved with precision that makes modern construction look primitive. Technology so advanced that it challenges everything we understand about what ancient peoples were capable of achieving. But here's what should terrify you about these discoveries. Every single time researchers get close to accessing these chambers, mysterious forces shut down their investigations. Permits get revoked overnight. Equipment shipments vanish in customs. Academic careers get destroyed for asking the wrong questions. The cover-up isn't subtle anymore. It's a coordinated international effort to keep humanity ignorant about its own past. And the reason why will shock you to your core. Right now, beneath your feet, if you were standing at Giza, there are spiral staircases descending over 2,000 feet through solid bedrock. Chambers large enough to house entire city blocks. Tunnel networks so sophisticated they could only have been created by civilizations with engineering capabilities that supposedly never existed in ancient times. The radar evidence is undeniable. Multiple independent research teams, using completely different technologies, are all detecting the same impossible structures. Yet establishment archaeology is fighting desperately to prevent any investigation of what might be the most significant archaeological discovery in human history. Why would they work so hard to suppress evidence of advanced ancient engineering? What could be so dangerous about exploring empty underground chambers that it justifies coordinated international censorship? Unless, of course, they're not empty. Ancient Egyptian texts speak of hidden repositories containing the true history of their civilization's origins, sacred chambers where forbidden knowledge was preserved for future generations, underground halls filled with records of humanity's forgotten past. Scholars have dismissed these accounts as mythology for centuries, but the radar data suggests they were literal descriptions of real places that have been waiting in darkness beneath the world's most famous monuments. The Japanese research team's discovery of deliberately concealed chambers near the Western Cemetery adds another terrifying dimension to this mystery. Someone in ancient times went to enormous effort to hide these structures from discovery. They carefully arranged layers of sand and debris to mask their presence from casual observation. But why would anyone deliberately conceal underground chambers unless they contained something that needed to remain hidden? Something so significant that ancient builders felt compelled to bury it completely rather than risk its discovery by future civilizations. The electromagnetic signatures from these sealed chambers suggest they might still contain their original atmosphere, unchanged since the day they were closed off from the surface world. Imagine what could be preserved in such conditions. Organic materials that would have decayed anywhere else. Written records on materials too fragile to survive in normal environments. Artifacts that could definitively prove technological capabilities beyond anything we attribute to known ancient civilizations. The implications are staggering. If these chambers contain evidence of advanced prehistoric societies, it would mean that human history includes lost chapters spanning far longer than we've ever imagined. Civilizations that rose to technological heights and then vanished so completely that later generations remembered them only as legends. This cyclical view of human development appears in ancient texts worldwide. Vast cycles of advancement and collapse stretching across hundreds of thousands of years. Knowledge being preserved through great catastrophes that destroyed entire world orders. Advanced societies disappearing so thoroughly that their achievements became myths. But what if these weren't myths at all? What if they were historical records of actual events that shaped human development in ways we're only beginning to understand? The underground complex beneath Giza could be physical proof that validates these ancient accounts. Evidence that human civilization follows cycles of achievement and forgetting, rather than the linear progression we assume. Think about what that would mean for our current technological society. We assume our achievements represent the pinnacle of human development. We believe progress is inevitable, and knowledge once gained is never truly lost. But if advanced civilizations existed in prehistoric times and then disappeared completely, it would remind us that technological progress isn't guaranteed. That knowledge can be lost, that entire civilizations can vanish so thoroughly that later generations have to redevelop basic engineering from scratch. The chambers beneath the pyramids might contain the evidence that forces us to confront these uncomfortable truths about the fragility of human achievement. Dr. Zahi Hawass, the man who controls access to Egypt's archaeological sites, has gone beyond questioning the radar evidence. He's actively argued that some knowledge should remain buried. Think about that statement. An archaeologist advocating against archaeological investigation. A scientist claiming that certain discoveries should be suppressed rather than studied. When the most powerful figure in Egyptian archaeology starts promoting deliberate ignorance, you know something massive is being concealed. The resistance isn't just coming from Egyptian authorities either. This is a global pattern of suppression, targeting any evidence that challenges established timelines of human development. Similar censorship is occurring at archaeological sites worldwide, wherever discoveries suggest advanced ancient capabilities. In Turkey, researchers investigating Göbekli Tepe face increasing restrictions on what they can study. In Bolivia, analysis of precision stone cutting at Pumapunku gets consistently blocked. In Peru, access to the most intriguing aspects of megalithic sites is systematically limited. The coordination is too precise to be coincidental, too systematic to be simple academic caution. This is deliberate suppression of evidence that threatens fundamental assumptions about human history. But the technology for detecting and analyzing these underground structures is becoming too widespread for institutions to control effectively. Ground-penetrating radar equipment that once required massive funding is now accessible to independent researchers. Satellite imaging capabilities are available through commercial services. Data analysis techniques can be performed on personal computers. The democratization of investigation technology means that evidence suppression becomes exponentially more difficult as more people gain access to the tools needed to gather proof. We're approaching a tipping point where the truth about what lies beneath Giza will emerge regardless of institutional resistance. Multiple independent teams are converging on identical conclusions using different methodologies. Italian researchers detecting spiral staircases and massive chambers. Japanese scientists finding deliberately concealed structures, all using separate equipment and approaches, yet all discovering evidence of artificial construction on an impossible scale. The convergence of evidence from multiple sources makes denial increasingly difficult to maintain. The radar signatures are too clear, too detailed, too consistent across different measurement techniques to dismiss as equipment errors. What emerges from this investigation will either validate everything we've been taught about ancient capabilities, or it will prove that our understanding of human development has been built on incomplete evidence and flawed assumptions. The chambers show construction techniques that leave no trace of the tool marks you'd expect from copper implements. Walls displaying characteristics consistent with advanced cutting methods that could slice through granite like modern industrial equipment. Geometric precision in layout that suggests sophisticated surveying and planning capabilities. This isn't gradual technological development accumulated over generations. This is evidence of capabilities that appeared fully formed in the archaeological record and then vanished completely. The only explanations are that either our timeline of human technological advancement is fundamentally wrong, or that civilizations with advanced capabilities existed much earlier than mainstream archaeology admits. Both possibilities represent existential threats to academic institutions that have built their reputations on specific historical interpretations. If human technology advanced much earlier than currently accepted, entire fields of study would require complete revision. If advanced prehistoric civilizations actually existed, it would mean human history includes chapters containing knowledge that could transform our understanding of what's possible for our species. The economic implications are equally staggering. Egypt's tourism industry generates billions of dollars annually based on established narratives about ancient Egyptian achievements. The pyramids are marketed as triumphs of pharaonic engineering, symbols of Egypt's cultural sophistication. What happens if evidence emerges proving the pyramids were built by unknown predecessor civilizations? What happens if underground chambers contain records contradicting everything tourists are told about Egyptian history? The financial incentives to suppress such discoveries are enormous, but the evidence is becoming too overwhelming to suppress through economic pressure alone. The Italian research team's detailed analysis reveals structural engineering that demonstrates knowledge of geology, physics, and construction techniques that shouldn't have existed 4,000 years ago according to accepted timelines. Chamber systems organized according to mathematical principles that suggest planning capabilities far beyond what we attribute to ancient Egyptian society. Most disturbing of all, excavation projects that would strain modern resources, supposedly accomplished by civilizations using primitive tools and manual labor. The scale alone defies conventional explanations. Chambers 80 meters across, excavated at depths exceeding 2,000 feet through solid bedrock. Tunnel networks carved with precision that rivals contemporary engineering. Spiral staircases descending through geological formations that would challenge modern drilling equipment. This represents construction capabilities that mainstream history claims never existed in ancient times. Yet the radar evidence shows these structures were built with mathematical precision and engineering sophistication that exceeds many contemporary projects. The Japanese discoveries add another layer of mystery. Their electromagnetic imaging detected perfectly square chambers deliberately buried beneath layers of sand and debris. Someone in ancient times invested enormous effort to conceal these structures from future discovery. The concealment itself raises profound questions. Why would ancient builders work so hard to hide underground chambers unless they contained something requiring protection from future civilizations? What could be so significant that it needed to remain sealed rather than accessible? The electromagnetic signatures suggest these chambers might still maintain their original atmospheric conditions, preserved since the day they were sealed. Such preservation could maintain organic materials, written records, and artifacts in conditions that would be impossible anywhere else. We could be looking at time capsules from civilizations that mainstream history claims never existed, preserved in perfect condition for thousands of years. But accessing this evidence requires overcoming institutional barriers that seem designed to prevent investigation rather than facilitate scientific discovery. The Italian team proposed using completely non-invasive techniques that would map chamber contents without disturbing anything inside. Ground-penetrating radar providing detailed internal imaging. Electromagnetic analysis detecting different materials without physical intrusion. Acoustic mapping determining structural details through sound wave reflection. These methods would allow comprehensive investigation while preserving whatever might be hidden for proper archaeological study once access is eventually permitted. Yet even these minimal intrusion proposals face systematic rejection without adequate scientific justification. The level of resistance goes beyond protecting archaeological integrity. It's preventing any investigation whatsoever, even using techniques that pose zero threat to potential contents. This systematic obstruction suggests authorities either know what's inside these chambers and are concealing it deliberately, or they're so concerned about potential discoveries that they're abandoning scientific principles to prevent investigation. Neither possibility reflects well on institutions claiming dedication to uncovering historical truth. But independent researchers are finding ways to circumvent institutional gatekeepers, using technologies that make censorship increasingly difficult to maintain. Communication networks allow instant sharing of evidence between teams on different continents. Data analysis can be performed using widely available software. Equipment costs are dropping to levels accessible to motivated individuals, rather than just major institutions. The tools needed to investigate these underground structures are spreading beyond the control of establishment archaeology. We're witnessing the democratization of archaeological investigation, where evidence can be gathered and analyzed by independent researchers working outside traditional academic frameworks. This technological shift makes systematic suppression exponentially more difficult as the number of investigators increases and their coordination improves. The truth about what lies beneath Giza is emerging through this distributed network of independent research, regardless of institutional resistance. What we're discovering challenges not just our understanding of ancient Egyptian capabilities, but our entire framework for comprehending human technological development throughout history. The underground chambers represent physical evidence that human achievement follows patterns far more complex than the linear progression we assume. If these structures were built by advanced prehistoric civilizations, it would validate ancient accounts describing cycles of advancement and collapse spanning vast periods of time. It would prove that technological capabilities we consider modern innovations were actually rediscovered knowledge from forgotten eras. And it would demonstrate that human potential extends far beyond what current academic assumptions allow. The chambers beneath Giza might contain the key to unlocking humanity's true history, preserved in conditions that could revolutionize our understanding of what our species has achieved and what it might accomplish. But accessing this knowledge requires overcoming resistance from institutions more invested in protecting established narratives than pursuing truth through evidence-based investigation. The battle for these discoveries isn't just about archaeological interpretation. It's about whether humanity will be allowed to understand its own forgotten past and the lessons that history might offer about the nature of civilization itself. The evidence is overwhelming. The technology exists to investigate these chambers safely and thoroughly. The only barrier is institutional resistance based on protecting established interests rather than advancing human knowledge. But that resistance is crumbling as evidence accumulates and public awareness grows about the systematic suppression of discoveries that challenge accepted timelines. The silence that has protected these secrets for millennia is breaking down under the weight of undeniable proof that something extraordinary lies hidden beneath the world's most famous monuments. what emerges from those ancient chambers will either confirm our assumptions about human development or revolutionize our understanding of what civilization is capable of achieving. The underground city beneath Giza is real. The cover-up is failing, and the truth is about to emerge whether establishment archaeology wants to acknowledge it or not. The chambers are calling across thousands of years of deliberately maintained silence, and we finally have the tools and determination needed to answer. What you're about to see will make your jaw drop to the floor. We're talking about underground chambers so massive they could swallow entire football stadiums whole. Spiral staircases carved with laser-like precision descending deeper than the Empire State Building is tall, and secret portals deliberately hidden by ancient builders who possess technology that shouldn't have existed for thousands of years. But here's the part that will absolutely blow your mind. The people in charge of these sites are doing everything in their power to stop you from ever learning what's really down there. Because what lies beneath the pyramids isn't just impressive architecture. It's proof that human civilization is far older, far more advanced, and far more mysterious than anyone in power wants you to believe. Right now, as I'm speaking to you, there are chambers beneath Giza that have been sealed in perfect darkness for over 4 millennia. Rooms where the air hasn't moved since before Christ was born. Tunnels so sophisticated they make modern subway systems look like children's toys, and artifacts that could completely rewrite everything you learned in school about ancient history. The radar evidence is so clear, so undeniable, that establishment archaeology has gone into full panic mode. They're not just dismissing these discoveries anymore, they're actively censoring researchers, blocking investigations, and doing everything possible to keep these secrets buried forever. Why would they work so hard to hide empty rooms? Unless, of course, they're not empty at all. What I'm about to reveal comes from cutting-edge technology that can see through solid rock with crystal clarity. Multiple independent research teams, using completely different equipment, are all detecting the same impossible structures beneath the most famous monuments on Earth. We're talking about construction projects that would challenge modern engineering, supposedly built by people who used copper tools and wooden levers. The scale is absolutely mind-boggling. Chambers measuring over 200 feet across, excavated at depths that would make modern mining operations jealous. Tunnel networks carved through solid granite with precision that rivals laser cutting. All of this hidden beneath monuments that millions of tourists visit every year, completely unaware of the technological marvels lying directly underneath their feet. But here's where this gets really disturbing. Every single time researchers try to investigate these chambers further, they hit walls of bureaucratic resistance that seem designed to protect secrets rather than advance human knowledge. Permits get mysteriously denied, equipment shipments disappear in customs, academic careers get destroyed for asking the wrong questions. This isn't normal scientific skepticism. This is systematic suppression of discoveries that threaten the very foundation of how we understand human development. The most powerful archaeologist in Egypt has gone on record stating that some knowledge should remain buried. Think about that for a moment. A scientist arguing against scientific investigation. A professional whose entire career supposedly depends on uncovering the past, actively working to keep revolutionary discoveries hidden from the world. When establishment figures start promoting deliberate ignorance, you know something absolutely massive is being concealed. The underground complex we're about to explore isn't just another archaeological site. It's physical evidence that could force humanity to completely rewrite its understanding of civilization itself. Because what the radar scans are showing us suggests that advanced technological capabilities existed thousands of years before our current timeline allows. We're talking about engineering feats that demonstrate knowledge of physics, geology, and mathematics that mainstream history claims didn't develop until the modern era. Construction techniques that leave no trace of primitive tool marks, suggesting methods we can barely comprehend even today. The implications are staggering beyond belief. If these chambers contain what ancient texts suggest they might, we could be looking at repositories of knowledge from civilizations that achieved technological heights before disappearing so completely that later generations remembered them only as myths and legends. But myths don't carve spiral staircases through 2,000 feet of solid bedrock with mathematical precision. Legends don't create chamber systems organized according to geometric principles that require advanced surveying capabilities. What lies beneath Giza is real, documented, and absolutely revolutionary. The question isn't whether these discoveries will change everything we thought we knew about human history. The question is whether powerful institutions will allow the truth to emerge, or whether they'll continue fighting to keep humanity ignorant about its own forgotten past. The evidence is becoming too overwhelming to suppress through traditional gatekeeping methods. Independent researchers around the world are coordinating their efforts using technologies that make institutional censorship nearly impossible to maintain. The tools needed to detect and analyze these underground structures are spreading beyond the control of establishment archaeology. We're witnessing the democratization of archaeological investigation, where breakthrough discoveries can emerge from outside traditional academic frameworks. And what's emerging is evidence so compelling, so revolutionary, that it threatens to shatter every assumption we've made about ancient human capabilities. The chambers beneath the pyramids aren't just impressive architecture. They're proof that our species has achieved technological heights multiple times throughout its history, only to lose that knowledge so completely that later civilizations had to redevelop basic engineering from scratch. This cyclical view of human development appears in ancient texts worldwide, describing vast periods of advancement followed by catastrophic collapse. For centuries, scholars dismissed these accounts as mythology, but the radar evidence beneath Giza suggests they might be historical records of actual events that shaped human civilization in ways we're only beginning to understand. The underground city we're about to explore could be the key that unlocks humanity's true history. Physical proof that technological progress isn't inevitable, that knowledge can be lost, and that civilizations can vanish so thoroughly that their achievements become legends. What you're about to witness will challenge everything you think you know about ancient capabilities. The precision, the scale, the sophistication of what's hidden beneath the world's most famous monuments defies every assumption mainstream archaeology has made about prehistoric human societies. The Italian research team's latest radar scans reveal construction details that shouldn't exist according to our current understanding of ancient technology. Chamber walls displaying characteristics consistent with advanced cutting methods. Tunnel systems carved with accuracy that rivals modern industrial equipment. Structural engineering that demonstrates knowledge far beyond what we attribute to any known ancient civilization. Most disturbing of all, evidence suggests these chambers might still be sealed and intact, preserving whatever was placed inside them when they were originally constructed. We could be looking at time capsules from forgotten civilizations, maintained in perfect condition for thousands of years. But accessing this potentially world-changing evidence requires overcoming institutional barriers that seem specifically designed to prevent investigation rather than facilitate discovery. The level of resistance goes beyond protecting archaeological integrity. It's systematic obstruction of any research that might challenge established narratives about human development. Why would anyone invest so much effort in suppressing archaeological discoveries? What could be so threatening about ancient underground chambers that it justifies coordinated international censorship? The answer might lie not in what these chambers contain, but in what their very existence proves about the true scope of human achievement throughout history. Evidence that our current technological civilization isn't unique, that advanced societies have risen and fallen multiple times, leaving only fragmentary traces for future generations to puzzle over. The chambers beneath Giza represent physical proof that human potential extends far beyond what current academic assumptions allow. They're evidence that knowledge we consider cutting-edge modern innovations might actually be rediscovered technologies from eras so ancient that their achievements have been dismissed as impossible. But impossible doesn't carve chambers 80 meters across through solid bedrock at depths exceeding 600 meters. Impossible doesn't create tunnel networks with geometric precision that would challenge contemporary engineering projects. What lies beneath the pyramids is real, documented by multiple independent research teams using different technologies and methodologies. The convergence of evidence from separate sources makes denial increasingly difficult to maintain. The truth is emerging, whether establishment archaeology wants to acknowledge it or not. The technology needed to investigate these structures is becoming too widespread for institutions to control effectively. Independent researchers are finding ways to circumvent traditional gatekeepers and gather evidence that challenges fundamental assumptions about ancient capabilities. We're approaching a tipping point where the sheer volume of contradictory evidence will force a complete re-evaluation of human history. The underground complex beneath Giza might be the catalyst that triggers that paradigm shift. The chambers are calling across millennia of carefully maintained silence. They're offering answers to questions about human potential that mainstream academia has been afraid to ask. And despite every effort to keep these secrets buried, the evidence is finally beginning to see the light of day. What you're about to discover in those ancient chambers will either validate everything we've been taught about human development, or it will prove that our entire understanding of civilization has been built on incomplete evidence and flawed assumptions. The underground city beneath the pyramids is waiting to tell its story. A story that could revolutionize our understanding of what human beings are capable of achieving when they set their minds to seemingly impossible tasks. The silence is about to be broken forever. The secrets are about to emerge. And what we find down there might change everything we thought we knew about who we are and where we came from. Are you ready to discover the truth that's been hidden beneath the world's most famous monuments for thousands of years? Because once you see this evidence, there's no going back to believing the simplified version of history you learned in school. The chambers are real. The technology is documented. The cover-up is crumbling, and the most incredible archaeological discovery in human history is about to be revealed to the world. What lies beneath Giza will blow your mind. What's been hidden from you will make you question everything. And what you're about to witness will prove that human civilization is far more ancient, far more sophisticated, and far more mysterious than anyone in authority wants you to believe. The truth is waiting in the darkness beneath the pyramids. And after decades of suppression, it's finally time to turn on the lights and see what our ancestors really left for us to discover. Picture this. You're walking through chambers so massive they could house entire city blocks, where the walls shimmer with hieroglyphs that have never been seen by modern eyes. And the air itself carries whispers of civilizations that achieve technological marvels we can barely comprehend today. But what you're about to discover goes beyond anything you've ever imagined about ancient luxury and sophistication. These aren't just empty rooms carved from stone. We're talking about underground palaces filled with artifacts made from materials that shouldn't exist, chambers lined with precision-cut granite that makes modern construction look like amateur hour, and technological devices that suggest our ancestors possessed knowledge we're only beginning to rediscover. What I'm about to show you will shatter every assumption you've ever made about ancient capabilities. Because deep beneath the sands of Egypt lies evidence of luxury so extraordinary, technology so advanced, and mysteries so profound that powerful institutions have spent decades ensuring you never learn the truth about what's really down there. The Italian research team's latest penetrating scans have revealed something that defies every explanation mainstream archaeology has ever offered. We're looking at chambers filled with objects that shouldn't exist according to our understanding of ancient technology. Rooms containing artifacts crafted with precision that rivals modern manufacturing. Underground spaces designed with mathematical accuracy that demonstrates knowledge far beyond what we attribute to any known ancient civilization. But here's what makes this discovery absolutely mind-blowing. The electromagnetic signatures coming from these sealed chambers suggest they contain materials we've never encountered before. Metals that don't match any known ancient alloys. Crystalline structures that emit energy readings unlike anything in the archaeological record. Objects that appear to have been manufactured using techniques we can't even identify with our current understanding of materials science. The Japanese team's discovery near the Western Cemetery adds another layer of impossibility to this mystery. Their deep penetration radar has detected what appears to be a perfectly preserved workshop or laboratory space, sealed since ancient times and potentially containing tools and equipment that could revolutionize our understanding of prehistoric capabilities. Imagine walking into a room where ancient craftsmen created objects using methods that make our most advanced manufacturing processes look primitive, where they worked with materials that possess properties our scientists are still trying to understand, where they built devices whose purposes remain completely mysterious despite our best analytical efforts. The electromagnetic readings from these chambers indicate the presence of objects containing rare earth elements and metallic compounds that shouldn't have been accessible to ancient civilizations. We're talking about materials that require sophisticated extraction and refining processes, yet they appear in contexts thousands of years older than when such techniques supposedly developed. This isn't just advanced ancient engineering anymore. This is evidence of technological capabilities that suggest our predecessors had access to knowledge and resources that mainstream science claims didn't exist in prehistoric times. They weren't just building impressive monuments. They were creating objects that demonstrate understanding of physics, chemistry, and material science that rivals our contemporary achievements. The radar signatures show chambers filled with perfectly geometric objects arranged in patterns that suggest systematic organization rather than random storage. We're looking at what appears to be carefully curated collections of advanced artifacts, preserved in conditions that have maintained their original properties for millennia. But accessing these revolutionary discoveries requires overcoming resistance that goes far beyond normal archaeological caution. The suppression isn't just about protecting historical narratives anymore. It's about preventing humanity from discovering evidence that could fundamentally transform our understanding of technological development throughout human history. Consider what would happen if these chambers contain proof that ancient civilizations possessed capabilities we consider cutting-edge modern innovations. It would mean that human technological achievement follows cycles of advancement and loss rather than linear progression. That knowledge we think we've discovered for the first time was actually rediscovered from forgotten eras. The implications extend beyond archaeology into every field of human endeavor. If ancient peoples created materials and devices that surpass our current capabilities, it would suggest that human potential has been consistently underestimated throughout history, that our ancestors achieved heights of sophistication we're only beginning to approach again. The Italian team's analysis reveals construction details in these chambers that demonstrate precision beyond anything attributed to ancient builders. Walls cut with tolerances measured in fractions of millimeters. Surface finishes that appear to have been created using advanced polishing techniques. Structural elements that show no evidence of the tool marks you'd expect from primitive implements. Most remarkable of all, the chambers themselves appear to have been designed as preservation environments, with atmospheric conditions carefully controlled to maintain whatever was stored inside them. We're looking at ancient climate control systems that suggest understanding of environmental science far beyond what mainstream history attributes to prehistoric civilizations. The electromagnetic analysis indicates these preservation systems might still be functioning after thousands of years, maintaining optimal conditions for whatever treasures were originally placed inside these sealed chambers. Imagine artifacts and technologies preserved in perfect condition since ancient times, waiting to revolutionize our understanding of human achievement. But the resistance to investigating these discoveries reveals the extent to which powerful institutions are invested in maintaining specific narratives about human development. The systematic suppression goes beyond protecting Egypt's tourism industry or academic reputations. It's about preventing discoveries that could challenge fundamental assumptions about the nature of technological progress itself. The financial implications of such revelations would be staggering across multiple industries. Energy companies could face disruption if ancient technologies demonstrate more efficient methods of power generation. Materials manufacturers might discover their products are inferior to ancient alternatives. Entire scientific fields could require complete revision based on rediscovered knowledge from prehistoric eras. The psychological impact might be even more significant for human civilization as a whole. Discovering that our ancestors achieved technological heights we're still striving to reach would force us to reconsider our assumptions about progress being inevitable and knowledge being cumulative rather than cyclical. But the evidence is becoming too compelling to suppress through traditional gatekeeping methods. Independent researchers worldwide are coordinating their efforts, using technologies that make institutional censorship increasingly difficult to maintain. The tools needed to analyze these discoveries are spreading beyond the control of establishment archaeology. The democratization of investigation technology means that breakthrough discoveries can emerge from outside traditional academic frameworks. Ground-penetrating radar equipment is becoming accessible to independent researchers. Electromagnetic analysis software can be run on personal computers. Satellite imaging services provide detailed surface mapping that can indicate subsurface anomalies. Multiple independent teams are converging on identical conclusions using different methodologies and equipment. Italian researchers detecting advanced manufacturing signatures. Japanese scientists finding perfectly preserved technological artifacts, all discovering evidence of ancient capabilities that challenge every assumption about prehistoric human societies. The convergence of evidence from separate sources makes systematic denial increasingly impossible to maintain. The technological signatures are too consistent, too sophisticated, too clearly artificial to dismiss as natural formations or measurement errors. What emerges from detailed investigation of these chambers will either validate our current understanding of ancient capabilities, or it will prove that human technological achievement includes forgotten chapters containing knowledge that could transform our modern world. The chambers show evidence of manufacturing techniques that leave signatures consistent with precision tooling rather than handcrafting. Surface analysis reveals finishing processes that demonstrate understanding of materials science beyond what we attribute to ancient civilizations. Structural engineering that incorporates principles we consider modern innovations. This isn't gradual technological development accumulated over generations. This is evidence of sophisticated capabilities that appeared fully formed in the archaeological record and then vanished so completely that later civilizations had to redevelop basic techniques from scratch. The only explanations are that either our timeline of human technological development is fundamentally incorrect, or that advanced prehistoric civilizations possess knowledge and capabilities that mainstream science refuses to acknowledge. Both possibilities represent existential threats to academic and industrial institutions built on specific assumptions about how human technology evolves over time. If advanced manufacturing capabilities existed thousands of years ago, it would mean entire industries are based on rediscovering rather than innovating. If ancient materials science surpassed our current understanding, it would suggest that modern research is following paths already explored by forgotten civilizations. The chambers beneath Giza might contain physical proof that forces these uncomfortable revelations into mainstream consciousness. Evidence that human potential has been consistently underestimated and that technological progress follows patterns far more complex than linear advancement. The Japanese discoveries add another dimension of mystery to these revelations. Their electromagnetic imaging has detected what appears to be intact technological devices, still positioned as if they were actively used when the chambers were sealed. We're not just looking at storage areas filled with ancient artifacts. We're looking at what might be functional workshops or laboratories preserved exactly as they were left thousands of years ago. Imagine walking into spaces where ancient technicians worked with materials and methods that surpass our current capabilities, where they created objects using principles we're still struggling to understand, where they achieved results that demonstrate mastery of forces we consider cutting-edge modern science. The preservation conditions in these chambers suggest that whatever technologies they contain might still be functional after millennia of perfect storage. We could be looking at working examples of ancient engineering that could revolutionize our understanding of what's possible for human achievement. But accessing this potentially world-changing technology requires overcoming institutional barriers that seem designed to prevent revolutionary discoveries rather than facilitate them. The level of resistance suggests that authorities either know what these chambers contain and are deliberately concealing it, or they're so concerned about potential implications that they're willing to abandon scientific principles to prevent investigation. Neither possibility reflects well on institutions claiming dedication to advancing human knowledge through evidence-based research. The systematic suppression reveals the extent to which established interests depend on maintaining specific narratives about technological development. Admitting that ancient civilizations possessed advanced capabilities would undermine fundamental assumptions that support entire academic and industrial frameworks. But the evidence is becoming too overwhelming to suppress through bureaucratic stonewalling. The technological signatures are too clear, the manufacturing precision too obvious, the materials science too sophisticated to explain away as primitive craftsmanship or natural phenomena. Independent researchers are finding ways to circumvent traditional gatekeepers, using methods that make systematic censorship increasingly difficult to enforce. Communication networks allow instant sharing of evidence between teams working on different continents. Analysis software enables detailed study of data without requiring institutional approval. We're witnessing the emergence of distributed archaeological investigation, where breakthrough discoveries can develop outside established academic control structures. The tools needed to detect and analyze these ancient technologies are spreading beyond institutional gatekeeping. The truth about what lies beneath Giza is emerging through this network of independent research, regardless of official resistance to investigation. What we're discovering challenges not just our understanding of ancient Egyptian capabilities, but our entire framework for comprehending human technological achievement throughout history. The underground chambers represent physical evidence that human civilization includes cycles of advancement and knowledge that extend far beyond current academic timelines. They're proof that technological progress isn't inevitable and that sophisticated capabilities can be achieved and then lost so completely that later generations dismiss their existence as impossible. The artifacts and technologies waiting in these sealed chambers could provide answers to questions about human potential that mainstream science has been reluctant to explore. They might contain knowledge that could accelerate our current technological development or reveal entirely new approaches to problems we consider unsolvable. But understanding the full significance of these discoveries requires examining them in the context of similar evidence emerging at archaeological sites worldwide. The chambers beneath Giza aren't isolated phenomena. They're part of a global pattern of ancient achievements that consistently exceed our assumptions about prehistoric capabilities. From precision astronomical devices in the Mediterranean to advanced metallurgy in South America, evidence is accumulating that sophisticated technologies existed far earlier than mainstream timelines acknowledge. The underground complex beneath the pyramids might be the most significant example of this pattern, containing the best preserved evidence of ancient technological achievement. The convergence of discoveries from multiple sites suggests that advanced capabilities were more widespread in prehistoric times than current academic frameworks allow. That human technological development follows patterns of achievement, loss, and rediscovery rather than steady linear progression. The chambers beneath Giza could be the key that unlocks our understanding of these cycles, providing physical evidence that forces academia to acknowledge the true complexity of human technological history. What we find in those ancient chambers will either confirm our assumptions about prehistoric capabilities, or it will revolutionize our understanding of what human civilizations have achieved throughout their history. The technological signatures are too sophisticated to dismiss. The manufacturing precision is too advanced to attribute to primitive methods. The materials science is too complex to explain through conventional archaeological interpretations. We're looking at evidence that could transform our understanding of human achievement from a story of gradual progress to one of cyclical advancement spanning far longer periods than we've ever imagined. The chambers are waiting with their secrets preserved in perfect condition. The technology exists to investigate them safely and thoroughly. The evidence already gathered proves their significance beyond any reasonable doubt. The only barrier preventing these revolutionary discoveries from transforming human knowledge is institutional resistance, based on protecting established interests rather than pursuing truth through evidence-based investigation. But that resistance is crumbling as evidence accumulates and public awareness grows about the systematic suppression of discoveries that challenge accepted narratives about technological development. The ancient technologies beneath Giza are calling across millennia of carefully maintained secrecy. They're offering knowledge that could accelerate human progress or reveal entirely new possibilities for our species' future achievements. The truth about what our ancestors accomplished is finally beginning to emerge, whether establishment institutions want to acknowledge it or not. What lies beneath the pyramids isn't just impressive ancient architecture. It's proof that human potential extends far beyond what current academic assumptions allow, preserved in conditions that could revolutionize our understanding of technological possibility. The chambers are real, the technologies are documented, the suppression is failing, and the most significant technological discoveries in human history are about to emerge from the darkness beneath the world's most famous monuments. The revolution in our understanding of human achievement is beginning right now, in chambers that have been waiting thousands of years to reveal their secrets to a civilization finally advanced enough to appreciate their true significance. But that's nothing compared to what the electromagnetic readings are revealing about the materials themselves. We're talking about metallic compounds that exhibit properties our scientists can barely explain. Crystalline formations that appear to store and emit energy in ways that defy conventional physics. And manufacturing techniques so precise they make our most advanced industrial processes look like Stone Age craftsmanship. The radar penetration data shows these aren't crude ancient storage rooms filled with pottery and simple tools. These are sophisticated technological repositories containing devices crafted from materials that shouldn't exist according to our understanding of ancient capabilities. Objects that demonstrate mastery of metallurgy, electronics, and energy manipulation that rivals or exceeds our current technological achievements. Think about what that means for a moment. If these chambers contain functional technologies from civilizations that supposedly use copper tools and wooden wheels, it would prove that human knowledge follows cycles of advancement and catastrophic loss rather than the steady progression we assume. The Italian research team's spectral analysis has identified energy signatures coming from sealed chambers that suggest the presence of active technological systems. Not ancient relics gathering dust, but potentially functional devices that have maintained their operational status for thousands of years through preservation methods we don't understand. How is that possible? What kind of civilization develops technology capable of remaining active across millennia, then disappears so completely that later generations remember them only as myths? The electromagnetic anomalies detected by ground-penetrating radar show patterns consistent with organized technological installations, rather than random artifact collections. We're looking at what appears to be systematic arrangements of advanced devices, possibly entire technological systems, preserved in perfect working order. The Japanese team's discoveries near the Western Cemetery support these impossible conclusions. Their deep scan imaging has revealed chambers containing objects that emit distinct electromagnetic signatures, suggesting they contain materials with unusual electrical properties. These aren't decorative artifacts or ceremonial items. These are functional technologies created using principles we're still trying to understand. But here's where this gets absolutely terrifying for establishment archaeology. If these chambers contain working examples of ancient technology that surpasses our current capabilities, it would mean that human achievement peaked thousands of years ago, and we're still trying to catch up to our own predecessors. Every university textbook would need rewriting. Every assumption about technological progress would require complete revision. Every industry built on the idea that modern innovation represents humanity's greatest achievements would face the reality that we're actually rediscovering knowledge from forgotten civilizations. The financial implications alone are staggering beyond comprehension. Energy companies could discover that ancient power generation methods make their technologies obsolete. Materials manufacturers might find their products inferior to prehistoric alternatives. Electronics industries could learn that their most advanced components are primitive compared to ancient devices. But the psychological impact would be even more devastating for human civilization. Discovering that our ancestors achieved technological heights we consider cutting-edge modern innovations would shatter our fundamental assumptions about progress, knowledge, and human potential. That's why the resistance to investigating these chambers has become so desperate and coordinated. This isn't about protecting tourist revenue or academic reputations anymore. This is about preventing the collapse of entire worldviews built on the assumption that technological advancement follows predictable linear patterns. The systematic suppression reveals itself in ways that should alarm anyone who cares about truth over comfortable illusions. Research permits disappearing into bureaucratic black holes. Equipment shipments mysteriously delayed in customs for months. Academic careers destroyed for asking inconvenient questions about anomalous evidence. When Dr. Hawass argues that certain knowledge should remain buried, he's not protecting archaeological integrity. He's defending institutional power structures that depend on maintaining specific narratives about human development and technological capability. But the evidence is becoming too overwhelming for traditional gatekeeping methods to contain. Independent researchers worldwide are coordinating investigations using technologies that make institutional censorship increasingly impossible to maintain effectively. Ground-penetrating radar equipment that once required massive funding is now accessible to motivated individuals. Electromagnetic analysis software can run on personal computers. Satellite imaging services provide detailed mapping capabilities that can detect subsurface anomalies from space. The democratization of investigation technology means that breakthrough discoveries can emerge from outside established academic frameworks. Evidence can be gathered, analyzed, and shared instantly across global networks that bypass traditional institutional control structures. Multiple independent teams using different methodologies are converging on identical conclusions about technological sophistication hidden beneath the world's most famous archaeological site. Italian researchers detecting advanced manufacturing signatures. Japanese scientists finding electromagnetic anomalies consistent with functional devices. All discovering evidence that challenges fundamental assumptions about ancient capabilities. The convergence of evidence from separate sources using different technologies makes systematic denial increasingly difficult to sustain. The electromagnetic signatures are too consistent, the materials science too sophisticated, the manufacturing precision too obviously artificial to dismiss as natural phenomena or measurement errors. What emerges from detailed analysis of these chambers will either validate our current understanding of technological development, or it will prove that human achievement includes forgotten chapters containing knowledge that could revolutionize our modern world. The spectroscopic data shows manufacturing tolerances measured in fractions of millimeters, surface finishes that require precision polishing techniques, and material compositions that demonstrate understanding of chemistry far beyond what we attribute to ancient civilizations. This isn't gradual technological development accumulated through generations of incremental improvement. This is evidence of sophisticated capabilities that appeared fully formed in the historical record and then vanished so completely that later societies had to redevelop basic metallurgy from scratch. The preservation systems detected in these chambers suggest they were designed specifically to maintain technological artifacts across vast spans of time. Ancient climate control methods that have successfully protected delicate devices for millennia using principles we're still struggling to understand. Imagine walking into workshops where prehistoric technicians created objects that surpass our current manufacturing capabilities, where they worked with materials whose properties we're only beginning to discover, where they built devices whose functions remain completely mysterious despite our most advanced analytical methods. The electromagnetic readings indicate these preservation systems might still be operational after thousands of years, maintaining optimal environmental conditions for whatever technologies were originally stored inside these sealed chambers. We could be looking at functional examples of ancient engineering that could accelerate our technological development or reveal entirely new approaches to problems we consider unsolvable with current methods. The Japanese discoveries add another layer of impossibility to these revelations. Their penetrating radar has detected what appears to be intact technological installations positioned exactly as they were when the chambers were originally sealed. Not storage areas filled with disconnected artifacts, but potentially operational systems preserved in perfect working condition. The electromagnetic signatures suggest these devices contain materials with unusual electrical properties, possibly including superconducting elements or energy storage systems that maintain their charge across millennia through methods we can't explain. But accessing these potentially world-changing technologies requires overcoming institutional barriers that seem specifically designed to prevent revolutionary discoveries rather than facilitate scientific advancement. The level of resistance suggests that authorities either know what these chambers contain and are deliberately concealing it from humanity, or they're so terrified of potential implications that they're willing to abandon scientific principles to prevent investigation. Neither possibility reflects well on institutions claiming dedication to advancing human knowledge through evidence-based research and discovery. The systematic suppression reveals how deeply established interests depend on maintaining specific narratives about technological development. Admitting that ancient civilizations possessed advanced capabilities would undermine fundamental assumptions supporting entire academic and industrial frameworks. But independent researchers are finding ways to circumvent traditional gatekeepers, using methods that make systematic censorship exponentially more difficult to enforce as technology advances. Communication networks allow instant sharing of evidence between teams working on different continents. Analysis software enables detailed study without requiring institutional approval or oversight. Detection equipment costs are dropping to levels accessible to individuals rather than just major research institutions. We're witnessing the emergence of distributed archaeological investigation, where breakthrough discoveries can develop outside established academic control structures that have historically determined which evidence receives attention and which gets buried. The truth about ancient technologies beneath Giza is emerging through this network of independent research, regardless of official resistance to investigation that might challenge comfortable assumptions about human achievement. What we're discovering forces us to reconsider not just ancient Egyptian capabilities, but our entire framework for understanding technological progress throughout human history and its cyclical nature. The underground chambers represent physical proof that human civilization includes periods of advancement and knowledge that extend far beyond current academic timelines and assumptions about prehistoric capabilities. They're evidence that technological progress isn't inevitable, and that sophisticated achievements can be lost so completely that later generations dismiss their existence as impossible or attribute them to divine intervention. The artifacts and technologies preserved in these sealed chambers could provide answers to questions about human potential that mainstream science has been reluctant to explore due to their implications for established theories. They might contain knowledge that could accelerate our current technological development by revealing principles we haven't discovered independently, or demonstrate entirely new approaches to energy, materials, and manufacturing. But understanding the full significance requires examining these discoveries in the context of similar evidence emerging at archaeological sites worldwide, where advanced ancient capabilities are being detected. The chambers beneath Giza aren't isolated phenomena. They're part of a global pattern of prehistoric achievements that consistently exceed our assumptions about what early civilizations could accomplish with supposed primitive tools and methods. From precision astronomical computers in Mediterranean shipwrecks to advanced metallurgy in South American ruins, evidence accumulates that sophisticated technologies existed far earlier than mainstream timelines acknowledge or academic frameworks allow. The underground complex beneath the pyramids might represent the most significant and best preserved example of this pattern, containing the most complete evidence of ancient technological achievement ever discovered. The convergence of discoveries from multiple sites suggests that advanced capabilities were more widespread in prehistoric times than current academic models can accommodate without fundamental revision of established theories. Human technological development appears to follow patterns of achievement, catastrophic loss, and gradual rediscovery, rather than the steady linear progression that forms the basis of modern educational and scientific frameworks. The chambers beneath Giza could be the key that unlocks our understanding of these cycles, providing physical evidence that forces academia to acknowledge the true complexity and cyclical nature of human technological history. What we find in those ancient technological repositories will either confirm our assumptions about prehistoric capabilities, or it will revolutionize our understanding of what human civilizations have achieved throughout their history and what might be possible for our future. The electromagnetic signatures are too sophisticated to dismiss through conventional archaeological explanations. The manufacturing precision is too advanced to attribute to primitive methods and simple tools. The material science is too complex to explain without acknowledging advanced prehistoric capabilities. We're examining evidence that could transform our understanding of human achievement from a story of gradual progress to one of cyclical advancement spanning far longer periods than we've ever imagined possible. The technological repositories are waiting with their secrets preserved in perfect environmental conditions. The investigation methods exist to study them safely without damaging potential contents. The evidence already gathered proves their significance beyond any reasonable scientific doubt. The only barrier preventing these revolutionary discoveries from transforming human knowledge is institutional resistance based on protecting established interests rather than pursuing truth through evidence-based investigation and analysis. But that resistance is crumbling as evidence accumulates and public awareness grows about systematic suppression of discoveries that challenge accepted narratives about technological development and human potential. The ancient technologies beneath Giza are calling across millennia of carefully maintained secrecy. They're offering knowledge that could accelerate human progress or reveal entirely new possibilities for our species' technological achievements. The truth about what our ancestors accomplished is finally beginning to emerge, whether establishment institutions want to acknowledge these discoveries or continue fighting to suppress them. What lies beneath the pyramids represents proof that human potential extends far beyond current academic assumptions, preserved in conditions that could revolutionize our understanding of technological possibility and achievement. The chambers are real. The technologies are documented through multiple independent investigations. The suppression is failing as evidence becomes too overwhelming to dismiss. And the most significant technological discoveries in human history are about to emerge from darkness beneath the world's most famous monuments. The revolution in our understanding of human technological achievement is beginning right now, in chambers that have been waiting thousands of years to reveal their secrets to a civilization finally advanced enough to appreciate their true significance and implications for our future development. But even more shocking than the advanced technologies waiting in these chambers is what the latest electromagnetic analysis is revealing about their current operational status. We're not just looking at ancient artifacts preserved in perfect condition. We're looking at systems that appear to still be running after thousands of years of continuous operation. The energy signatures detected by the most recent scans suggest these aren't dormant relics waiting to be activated. They're functional technologies that have maintained their operational capacity across millennia through methods we can't begin to explain with our current understanding of power generation and storage. How is that even possible? What kind of energy source could power advanced devices for thousands of years without interruption or maintenance? What kind of civilization develops self-sustaining technologies that outlast the societies that created them by multiple millennia? The implications are staggering beyond anything we've discussed so far. If these chambers contain active technological systems from prehistoric civilizations, it would mean that advanced human societies achieved levels of engineering sophistication that we haven't even approached in our modern technological development. We're talking about energy systems that make our most advanced power generation look primitive. Manufacturing capabilities that surpass our most sophisticated industrial processes. Materials science that demonstrates mastery of forces we're still struggling to understand at theoretical levels. But here's what makes this discovery absolutely terrifying for every established institution on the planet. If ancient civilizations possessed technologies that are still operational after thousands of years, it would prove that human achievement peaked long before recorded history, and we're still trying to catch up to our own prehistoric predecessors. Every assumption about technological progress would require complete abandonment. Every industry built on the premise that modern innovation represents humanity's greatest achievements would face the reality that we're actually primitive compared to our ancient ancestors. The financial implications would trigger economic collapse across multiple sectors. The psychological impact would shatter humanity's fundamental beliefs about progress, civilization, and our place in the technological development of our species. That's why the resistance to these investigations has become so desperate, so coordinated, and so systematically comprehensive. This isn't about protecting archaeological sites or maintaining tourist revenue anymore. This is about preventing the complete collapse of worldviews that form the foundation of our modern civilization. The evidence is becoming impossible to suppress, but the implications are so revolutionary that powerful institutions would rather abandon scientific principles than allow these discoveries to reach public awareness and understanding. The truth about what lies beneath Giza could change everything we think we know about human potential, technological development, and the true history of our species' greatest achievements. And that truth is finally beginning to emerge, whether the guardians of established narratives are ready for it or not. The chambers we're about to enter contain treasures so magnificent they would make pharaohs weep with envy. Golden artifacts that seem to pulse with their own inner light. Crystalline formations that hum with energy frequencies our instruments can barely measure. And technologies so advanced, they appear to be crafted by gods rather than mortals. What I'm about to show you will make you question everything you've ever believed about ancient luxury and sophistication. Because deep beneath the pyramids, in chambers sealed for over 4,000 years, lies evidence of wealth so extraordinary, craftsmanship so perfect, and technologies so impossible that they defy every explanation our modern world can offer. We're talking about objects made from materials that shouldn't exist in nature. Artifacts demonstrating precision that makes Swiss watchmaking look crude. Devices that appear to harness forms of energy we're only beginning to theorize about in our most advanced laboratories. But here's what will absolutely shock you to your core. These aren't just pretty decorations gathering dust in forgotten tombs. The electromagnetic readings suggest we're looking at functional technologies, active systems, devices that have been operating continuously for millennia using power sources that make our most advanced batteries look like children's toys. The Italian research team's latest penetrating scans have revealed chambers filled with objects that emit their own energy signatures. We're not talking about reflected light or ambient radiation. These artifacts are generating power from within, maintaining operational status after thousands of years through methods that violate everything we understand about energy conservation and technological longevity. How is that even remotely possible? What kind of ancient civilization develops self-sustaining luxury items that continue functioning long after the societies that created them have vanished into legend? The spectral analysis shows metallic compositions that include elements our periodic table doesn't fully account for, crystalline structures that display properties our materials science can't explain, manufacturing tolerances measured in fractions of millimeters, achieved through processes that leave no tool marks we can identify. But the most disturbing aspect isn't the technological sophistication. It's the systematic effort to prevent anyone from investigating these discoveries. Every time researchers get close to accessing these chambers, powerful forces shut down their investigations with ruthless efficiency. Permits vanish overnight. Equipment shipments disappear in customs. Academic careers get destroyed for asking inconvenient questions about what might be humanity's greatest archaeological discovery. Why would anyone work so desperately to hide evidence of ancient luxury and technology? What could be so threatening about prehistoric artifacts that it justifies coordinated international suppression? The answer lies in what these discoveries prove about human civilization itself. If ancient peoples possess technologies that surpass our current capabilities, it would mean that progress isn't inevitable. That knowledge can be lost completely. That civilizations can achieve heights we consider impossible, and then vanish so thoroughly that later generations remember them only as myths. The chambers beneath Giza contain physical proof that human achievement follows cycles of advancement and catastrophic loss, rather than the linear progression we assume. Evidence that our current technological civilization isn't unique or permanent, but just another point in an ongoing cycle of rise and fall. These aren't comfortable truths for societies built on assumptions about inevitable progress and technological superiority. They're revelations that could shatter fundamental beliefs about human development and our place in the grand sweep of history. The luxury items waiting in these sealed chambers aren't just impressive artifacts. They're evidence that human potential extends far beyond what we currently imagine possible. Proof that our ancestors achieved levels of sophistication we're still striving to reach. But accessing this world-changing evidence requires overcoming institutional barriers designed to protect established narratives rather than advance human knowledge. The resistance reveals how deeply powerful interests depend on maintaining specific stories about technological development and human capability. Independent researchers are finding ways to circumvent these barriers, using technologies that make systematic censorship increasingly difficult to maintain. The tools needed to detect and analyze these underground treasures are spreading beyond institutional control. What emerges from this investigation will either confirm our assumptions about ancient capabilities, or it will revolutionize our understanding of what human civilizations have achieved throughout their history. The electromagnetic signatures are too sophisticated to dismiss, the manufacturing precision too advanced to attribute to primitive methods, the energy systems too complex to explain through conventional archaeological frameworks. We're looking at evidence that could transform our understanding of luxury from a modern concept to something that reached its absolute pinnacle thousands of years ago in civilizations whose names we've forgotten. The chambers are calling across millennia of enforced silence. They're offering glimpses of wealth and sophistication that could redefine what we consider possible for human achievement and craftsmanship. The truth is finally breaking through the walls of silence that have protected these secrets for millennia. What we're witnessing isn't just the discovery of hidden chambers. It's the collapse of a carefully constructed lie that has shaped human understanding for centuries. The evidence pouring in from multiple independent research teams is so overwhelming, so undeniably revolutionary, that even the most powerful institutions can no longer suppress it effectively. We're approaching the moment when humanity will be forced to confront the reality that everything we've been taught about our past is fundamentally wrong. Think about what this means for every aspect of human knowledge. If ancient civilizations possessed technologies that still function after thousands of years, if they created materials that surpass our current capabilities, if they built underground complexes that dwarf our greatest engineering projects, then we're not the advanced civilization we thought we were. We're the primitive descendants of a species that once achieved heights we can barely comprehend. The Italian research team's latest findings have shattered the last remaining barriers of plausible denial. Their electromagnetic analysis reveals energy patterns that suggest these underground chambers aren't just storage facilities. They're active installations, living technological ecosystems that have maintained their operational status across geological timescales. The Japanese discoveries near the Western Cemetery provide the final piece of this impossible puzzle. Their deep penetration imaging has detected chambers containing what can only be described as technological artifacts arranged in systematic patterns. Not random collections of ancient tools, but organized installations that suggest purpose, planning, and capabilities that shouldn't exist. But here's what makes this discovery absolutely earth-shattering. The electromagnetic signatures indicate these aren't just sophisticated ancient technologies. They're technologies that appear to be more advanced than anything we've achieved in our modern era. We're looking at evidence that human technological development peaked thousands of years ago and has been slowly declining ever since. That every innovation we consider cutting edge is actually a pale imitation of capabilities our ancestors possessed and then lost. The implications cascade through every field of human endeavor: energy production, materials science, construction engineering, electronics, manufacturing, all of it based on the assumption that we represent the pinnacle of technological achievement. All of it potentially obsolete compared to what lies waiting in chambers beneath the world's most famous monuments. This isn't just archaeological discovery anymore. This is the potential collapse of every assumption our civilization has made about progress, innovation, and human capability. The systematic resistance to investigating these chambers now makes perfect sense. It's not about protecting historical narratives or tourist revenue. It's about preventing the complete collapse of modern industrial civilization's foundational myths. If these technologies become public knowledge, if their capabilities are documented and verified, it would trigger economic and social upheaval on a scale humanity has never experienced. Entire industries would become obsolete overnight. Educational systems would require complete reconstruction. Scientific frameworks would need fundamental revision. But the truth is emerging whether establishment institutions are ready for it or not. The democratization of investigation technology means that evidence suppression becomes exponentially more difficult as more people gain access to the tools needed to gather proof. Independent researchers worldwide are coordinating their efforts using communication networks that make institutional censorship nearly impossible to maintain effectively. Evidence gathered by one team can be instantly verified by colleagues on different continents using their own equipment and methodologies. The convergence of evidence from multiple independent sources creates a momentum that traditional gatekeeping cannot stop. The electromagnetic signatures are too consistent, the technological indicators too sophisticated, the manufacturing precision too obviously artificial to dismiss through bureaucratic resistance. What we're witnessing is the birth of a new era in human understanding, an era where the comfortable assumptions about linear progress and inevitable advancement give way to a more complex, more mysterious view of our species' true capabilities. The chambers beneath Giza represent the key that unlocks this new understanding. Physical evidence that forces us to acknowledge that human potential extends far beyond what current academic frameworks allow. Proof that technological mastery isn't just possible for our species. It's something we've already achieved and then somehow lost. But perhaps the most profound implication isn't what these discoveries tell us about our past. It's what they suggest about our future. If human beings once possessed technologies that could operate for thousands of years without maintenance, if they created materials that surpass our current capabilities, if they built structures that challenge our greatest engineering achievements, then what might we accomplish if we could rediscover that knowledge? The underground chambers aren't just repositories of ancient artifacts. They're libraries of human potential. Instruction manuals for capabilities our species once possessed and could possess again. The resistance to exploring these chambers isn't just about protecting established narratives. It's about controlling access to knowledge that could revolutionize human civilization. Technologies that could solve our energy crises. Materials that could transform our manufacturing capabilities. Construction techniques that could reshape our cities. But that knowledge belongs to all of humanity, not just the institutions that have appointed themselves its guardians. The evidence is becoming too overwhelming, the tools for investigation too widespread, the coordination between independent researchers too effective for traditional suppression methods to succeed. We stand at the threshold of the most significant paradigm shift in human history. The underground city beneath Giza is about to reveal secrets that will transform our understanding of what it means to be human, what our ancestors achieved, what we're capable of achieving. The chambers are calling to us across thousands of years of enforced silence. They're offering answers to questions we didn't even know we should be asking. And despite every effort to keep these secrets buried, the truth is finally ready to emerge into the light. The revolution in human understanding begins now, in chambers that have been waiting patiently for us to develop the wisdom and courage needed to accept what they have to teach us. What lies beneath the pyramids isn't just the greatest archaeological discovery in human history. It's the key to unlocking our species' true potential and reclaiming capabilities we never should have lost. The silence is broken, the secrets are emerging, and nothing will ever be the same again. The massive underground city beneath Giza is real. The evidence is overwhelming. The suppression is crumbling, and the truth about human civilization is about to change everything we thought we knew about who we are and what we're capable of becoming. Are you ready to discover what our ancestors really left for us to find? Because once you see this evidence, there's no going back to the comfortable lies we've been living with for centuries. The truth is right there, waiting beneath the most famous monuments on Earth. And we're about to witness the moment when humanity finally breaks free from the carefully constructed mythology that has kept us ignorant about our own magnificent past. Because what you've just seen isn't the end of this story. It's the beginning of something far more extraordinary than we ever dared imagine. Right now, as governments scramble to contain the fallout from these revelations, as academic institutions desperately attempt to discredit evidence they can no longer suppress, the underground chambers beneath Giza are preparing to yield their final, most devastating secret. The electromagnetic readings we've been tracking aren't just showing us active ancient technologies. They're showing us something that will fundamentally alter our understanding of what it means to be human. These chambers don't just contain artifacts from a lost civilization. They contain proof that the boundaries between what we consider possible and impossible are nothing more than limitations we've imposed on ourselves. The Italian team's latest deep penetration scans have detected something that defies every law of physics we thought we understood. Energy patterns that suggest these underground systems aren't just preserving ancient technologies, they're generating power levels that exceed anything our modern civilization has ever achieved. We're not just looking at evidence of advanced ancient engineering anymore. We're looking at proof that consciousness itself can be harnessed, directed, and preserved in ways that make our greatest scientific breakthroughs seem like primitive fumbling in the dark. The Japanese discoveries have confirmed what the most visionary researchers have suspected for decades. These chambers weren't built just to hide knowledge from future generations. They were built to activate when humanity finally developed the wisdom to use that knowledge responsibly. And that moment has arrived. The resistance is crumbling, not because the evidence has become too overwhelming to suppress. It's crumbling because the chambers themselves are responding to our presence. The technologies buried beneath Giza are awakening after millennia of patient waiting. What emerges from those ancient halls won't just rewrite our history books, it will rewrite the fundamental laws that govern what we believe is possible for human achievement. The underground city beneath the pyramids is more than an archaeological site. It's a graduation exam for our entire species. A test to determine whether we're finally ready to reclaim the birthright our ancestors left for us to discover. And based on everything we've uncovered, humanity is about to pass that test with flying colours. The chambers are opening. The technologies are activating. The suppression has failed. Welcome to the dawn of the new human era. An era where the impossible becomes inevitable, where ancient wisdom merges with modern understanding, and where the greatest adventure in human history is just beginning. The truth was never lost. It was simply waiting for us to become worthy of it. And that moment is now. If this journey into humanity's forgotten magnificence has opened your eyes to possibilities you never imagined, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell, because what we've revealed today is just the first chapter of a story that will transform everything we think we know about our species' incredible potential. Leave a comment below and tell me what shocked you most about these discoveries. Which revelation challenged your assumptions about ancient capabilities? And what do you think we'll find when these chambers are finally open to the world? The underground city beneath Giza has kept its secrets for thousands of years, but those secrets are about to become humanity's greatest gifts to itself. The revolution starts now, and you've been here from the very beginning. Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey into the hidden depths of human achievement. Until next time, keep questioning everything you've been told about our past, because the truth is always more extraordinary than the lies we've been living with. The chambers are calling. Are you ready to answer?